Hallo, willkommen. Heute ist noch eine deutsche Stunde mit Katie It's the World. Today I've got 5 tips for you to sound instantly more German when you speak. These are some of the key things I learned while I was overseas, talking to actual Germans, speaking their language and trying to sound as native as possible. So, let's hop into it. First thing, know the difference between V, F and W. So V, F and V. They all have completely different sounds in German than they do in English, as is the case in most languages. There are always going to be letters that sound different in English than they do in that language. But for V and F in particular, it's important to know. So V is pronounced with an F sound. So you'd say Vogel instead of Vogel. And F, faul, für, you use that F sound with both the F and the V. In contrast, you would use W if you wanted to create a V sound. So Wochenende, willkommen, it's all with the V sound. And so this is where like the German stereotype of the German accent sort of comes into play, where they can't pronounce their W's because they are so used to pronouncing them as V's. To recap, F's and V's sound the same, but if you want to make a V sound, use a W. It's helpful when you want to know how to pronounce words that you maybe have never seen before. Tip number 2, take the E off of some of the verbs when you're speaking. Instead of ich habe einen Hut, you would say ich habe einen Hut. Just a little thing that the sort of youth culture does to sort of make their language a bit more slang. It's a very typical thing to do. You can only do it with a few words, like I wouldn't use it for ich spreche Deutsch. I wouldn't say ich spreche Deutsch. I would say ich spreche Deutsch. But if you wanted to say ich habe ein Handy, for example, like ich habe ein Handy, you would say ich habe ein Handy. See, I do it without even thinking these days because it's something I learned so early on in my like German learning journey. I learned it on my first exchange, and so a lot of the kids those days and these days even still speak German that way. Speak in the back of your throat. So a lot of people, they make the mistake of speaking at the front of their mouth the way that we do in English. To sort of like put this into perspective, French sort of speak, they push their mouth out like this. English, we sort of speak in like the middle of our mouth, right? It's all very round and loud. Whereas Germans, they speak at the back of their throat and they swallow their words. For example, if you said if I wanted to say my name is Katie, I would say mein Name ist Katie. Mein Name ist Katie. It's at the back of my throat, as opposed to mein Name ist Katie. It's a little bit different when you speak it at the front of your mouth, the way you would in English. Same goes for like ich studiere Deutsch, right? Ich studiere, I sort of swallowing the word studiere, Deutsch. It's all at the back of my throat here, but it's not like don't make that noise because it won't be helpful and no one will be able to understand you. But if you start swallowing some of the words, instead of saying Bratwurst, you would say Bratwurst. It starts to sound a lot more natural and a lot more German. And this leads into my 4th tip, which is don't roll your arse. A lot of teachers will, that's my neighbor. A lot of teachers will sort of tell you to roll your R's in order to get that typical German sound. So, ich spreche Deutsch, ein Bratwurst, you know, that's more Austrian in terms of accent. If you want to sound more truly German, what you have to do is swallow your R's. So, Bratwurst, it's right back here. Ich spreche, it's all back here. There's no solid pronunciation of that word, of that sound, as it might be in other languages. Like in Romance languages, you'll hear a lot of rolling of the R's. In Greek, you roll your R's as well. But in German, don't roll your R's, just swallow them. You'll have a lot better time trying to figure that out than trying to learn how to roll your R's, because honestly, rolling your R's is difficult and learning to swallow it instead is a lot easier. And it makes you sound a hell of a lot more German and a hell of a lot more fluent in what you're saying. All of these tips there to make you sound like a native speaker. And finally, my final tip for you to make you sound more like a German in less than 5 minutes, I suppose, is to replicate what you hear. So if you're doing listening exercises like you do in classes, I remember doing listening comprehensions, try and speak that way. Instead of saying ich bin, say ich bin. German is not as harsh of a language as a lot of people make it out to be. It's a very gentle language, actually, when it's actually spoken correctly, as opposed to the way English speakers say it. The very common comparison I always get is like farfalle versus Schmetterling. And while one does sound a little bit harsher than the other, it's all about the way you say it. If I were to say farfalle, it would sound just as harsh as Schmetterling, because that's the way people say it when they're talking about German stereotypes, when in reality Schmetterling is quite a lovely word. So replicate what you hear. Watch German film, listen to German music. Listening to German music is actually one of the best ways that you can learn German just generally. If you learn the songs and try and like learn the lyrics and form the words in your mouth properly, it is a great way to figure out how to get your pronunciation on par with what they actually hear and speak. So to recap, F and V have the same sound in German, but if you want to use a V sound, use a W. Take the E off some of your words if you want to sound a bit more youthful, a little bit more up with the kids. Speak in the back of your throat, and on top of that, don't roll your R's. And then finally, replicate what you hear in German pop culture and in your classes, because it's one of the best ways that you can learn how to speak properly. Thank you so much for watching, guys. If you like this video, please let me know. Please let me know if you want to see more of this sort of stuff, more German grammar and vocab and all that sort of stuff, because I love making these videos. It is one of the topics that I do actually have a bachelor's degree in, so it's very easy for me to talk about. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Tschüss!